I'm your guest host, Dimitri Brown. The transition from working in the corporate sector to teaching in the world of academia. That's the subject we'll be discussing today with 3 Lehman College professors. Joining us now are Professors James Carney, Nicholas Boston, and Spencer Firisen. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
How you doing?
Thanks for having us.
Cool.
Very good, thanks.
So the first question I want to ask is, where were you guys in the corporate world, and what made you come to academia?
Okay, well, I'll start. Those two things were always enmeshed for me. They were always intertwined. I started as a print journalist and also working online in 1999 when I finished my master's degree in journalism. And very shortly after that, I was contacted to teach one course here at Lehman. And as things developed, the department grew and became a department of its own. It used to be a program within another department, and I was offered a full-time, what we call tenure track position here, which I've had since 2004. At the same time, I was, freelancing, doing various things in all different media. I've worked in broadcast, I've worked in print, and I've worked online. So it's always been back and forth for me.
Cool.
Yeah, my background's primarily in television and cable television. Right out of Fordham University, I'm a local kid here from the Bronx. I went into working in television up through different cable TV companies, and I worked in all capacities from behind the camera to in front of the camera to running a division, and eventually I ended up at BronxNet running a nonprofit there. But I always knew that I enjoyed working with young people the most, so I went back to school after 20 years, got my master's degree, and shortly after that I was offered the position here. So in my mind it was a no-brainer. I just said, count me in.
Cool, sweet. Spencer?
Yeah, after I graduated from college, I had the opportunity to do a lot of freelancing in television and production and live event. And when I was 23 years old, I was managing 50 members of union crews that were 50 large. In many ways, it was like sort of managing a class and teaching a class. You had to motivate, you had to give them breaks, you had to develop them, and you had to feed them, which I don't have to do with students.
You can't fire your students.
Exactly,
right.
You can't fire them. And they got paid a lot of money.
You give them apps, though.
Exactly. They got paid a lot of money, of course. But for me, I'm sort of in both camps because I'm still in the corporate world, in corporate production, and I also am lucky enough to be an adjunct lecturer here. So I'm sort of straddled between both, and I enjoy it, and I like to look forward to doing a lot more teaching.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So before you guys came to the educational system, to academia, were y'all, was this something that you always knew that you wanted to do? Like when you were a journalist, when you was working in cable television, when you was working, managing a team, was this something that you always knew that you wanted to do?
Surely, yeah. I always had an idea that journalism was part of a larger project for me, a project that was, sort of continually developing. And so, even as I continued to teach, I continued to sort of like develop my educational kind of skills as well. And so I'm completing a PhD now. So it's always this, relationship between teaching and practicing. To me, I don't really see that much of a difference between them because it's just how my career has gone.
All right, cool.
Yeah, and throughout my career, whenever I had an option or an ability to build it in, I always built in educational programs, particularly for young people. At one point, I even created a math/programming class for the 3rd and 4th graders that I went out and did as a volunteer. So everywhere from when I was with the cable company, and then obviously when I went on to BronxNet, which has an enormous and incredible internship program, education and teaching has been something I always loved to do, and it runs throughout my entire career.
Cool.
I've in the last sort of 5 and 10 years of my career, it was something I really wanted to do, and I didn't know how I would find time to do it. I wasn't ready to sort of quit my profession. So, through my short time as a staff person here at Lehman College, responsible for sort of building and developing this studio that we're in, I was lucky enough to sort of start talking to Jim Carney about the opportunities and how that might work. And sure enough, he gave me an opportunity, and now it's sort of the 4th semester in, I'm still doing it, and I enjoy it. It's one of the best things I've ever done.
Very nice. Has your opinion of corporate media changed since becoming a professor? Do you look at what you used to do differently? Is it the same, now being a lecturer?
I think for me, I was fortunate in some respects to enter into the profession and teaching at the same time when there was a major transformation taking place in the field of journalism, which was the advent of the net, right? And so mainstream media, corporate media had to change because there were all these people who were kind of on the outsides or on the margins who were able to contribute through things like blogs, through things like, websites, startups. All of that stuff was happening from the very beginning of my career. And so, I entered a world that already was challenging the sort of, the way things were before, which was the media is out there kind of, being able to express opinions, a small group of people expressing opinions and everybody else consuming it. That changed sort of around 99, 2000.
One of the things you learn early on in any kind of media is that it's always changing. It never stays the same. Similar experience with me, except when I came in, the transition was not the internet, it was cable television.
Yeah, exactly.
I originally envisioned myself as a DJ, a radio DJ, and I was seeing the changes that were taking place at the time and realizing that if I wanted to eat on a regular basis, I probably should consider television, either including with radio or some sort of melding of that. And it has changed incredibly since those early days when I was working on productions and national productions as well as local ones, to the point that today, and the way things are now, we're on a boat that's traveling. It's not one that goes to point A and then stops and point B and stops.
That's a really good point.
Right.
It's constant.
True.
Yeah. It's constant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that much to add, but I think that for me, I saw the opportunities to sort of, for me, I wanted to do so many different things. I didn't just want to be sort of a production person. I wanted to find an opportunity if I could be a producer and do a little directing. And I've had the opportunity to do all those things, working in the corporate world, working in traditional journalism. So, for me, I've looked at everything and sort of worked with the transitions of media. And when you hear the term now, predator, so producer, editor, sort of, they've come up with these sort of interesting terminologies.
Like
but that sort of think, that's how I sort of thought about it. So.
Right. Would you say becoming a professional lecturer is more rewarding and gratifying than when you were at your previous positions? Or
I would say definitely. In my past positions, there was so much minutia that I had to deal with. I couldn't really deal with the creative elements. Towards the latter part of my career, I was so busy worrying about making payroll, worrying about getting sued, because in the media, there's always someone who's threatening or trying to sue you for defamation or First Amendment rights or stuff like that, to, oh, John didn't show up for work this morning, and all those different things. And just being able to not focus on those things to a large extent. I do a lot of that still with the administration here at Lehman, but to be able to get back to the creative element and working with young people, I think it's just been tremendous.
I think academia is, I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, but I think that, for me, it's sort of being able to teach people what I've learned and being able to learn from students, and the energy of being around students, I think, helps me professionally and personally as well. So, yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just carrying forth on what Spencer said, I mean, I learn a great deal from my students, and I see it as a two-way street. We have a student body here at Lehman that is incredibly diverse, not just in terms of ethnicity, but also in terms of where people are at in their lives. So, you have students who are sort of at the traditional kind of like college level in terms of their age, but then you also have people who are mature students, you have people who are married, who have partners, who have children, who work full-time. And those challenges really are impressive when you see the ways in which our students juggle all the things that they're responsible for. So, interacting with people who are really living in a community as opposed to being sort of in this kind of college campus bubble, which is the case with in other contexts is really gratifying to be able to contribute to that.
I'd also add on to that that there are hard times everywhere now in the corporate world, and even in the education world. Anybody that's been following the state budget or following what's happening at SUNY and even with CUNY, we're having to do more with less. So I think having a corporate background has helped understand the realities of having to do more with less. Our enrollment is up, but our number of professors is down. So having that professional structure of coming from a company, any kind of company, not just a media organization, but having that experience of understanding that helps, as opposed to someone who maybe came right out of graduate school, didn't get any professional experience in the quote real world. I always hated that term. This is a real world. Our campus is real, but I think that the experience we got, the structural experience that at least I got from where I worked prior to this, helped me bring some of that organization into the classes that I teach and the way that I teach.
Nice, very nice. If there's the last question, if there's any advice you could give to somebody such as a professor coming from the corporate sector, whether it be journalism, production, any place in the media, to then becoming a professor, what advice would you give them very quickly, Boston?
I would say that if you're interested in teaching, you've got to look within. Don't be focused on the job itself. Think about what you can bring to the profession, bring to the job, and think about what skills you have within. And those are emotional skills. They're not just sort of practical skills.
Do it for the right reason. Don't do it because you can't find a job in the corporate world. There is stability here potentially in teaching, but you really want to do it for the right reasons, and want to, again, we talked about learning stuff from your students. Be willing to make it a two-way street and commit to it, and I think it'll be gratifying.
There's an old rock and roll lyric that I like to go back to. It's through teaching I'll be taught. Right. You should always approach the classroom not as someone who says, well, I know everything and I'm going to bestow this upon my students. There's not one day in the classroom or in interacting with students that I don't learn from them as much as they learn from me.
Didn't they teach you how to use an iPod at one point?
What's an iPod?
And on that note.
yeah. And on that note, see, the students could teach teachers, professors can teach us. But yeah, on that note, I think we're running out of time. Thank you so much for joining this discussion. It's been very informative, and I'm sure everybody's going to benefit from this information. So thank you again.
Thank you
so much.